This story begins with something that looks simple on the surface, but slowly turns into a major global discussion about cars, ownership, and power. It starts with a wrecked Bugatti Chiron, one of the most expensive and rare cars in the world. This is not just any car. The Bugatti Chiron Per Sport is a limited machine built with extreme engineering and sold only to a very small number of people. When one of these cars gets destroyed in a crash, it usually goes back to the factory or is considered beyond repair. But in this case, things took a very different path. A well-known YouTuber and car builder, Mat Armstrong, became part of the story. He is known for rebuilding damaged supercars and bringing them back to life using his own skills, tools, and small team. Unlike big factories, he does not have unlimited resources or official manufacturer support. Still, he has built a strong reputation online for taking on difficult rebuilds that most people would never attempt. When he was connected to the wrecked Bugatti, the situation quickly became something much bigger than just a repair job at the same time. Discussions around luxury car ownership, repair rights, and manufacturer control started growing. People began asking a simple but powerful question. Once you buy a car, especially an expensive one, how much control should the manufacturer still have over it? This question would soon become the center of a much larger debate involving Bugatti, its corporate partners, and even Porsche. What started as a rebuild project slowly turned into a symbol of a much bigger conflict between independent creators and major car companies. The Bugatti Chiron involved in this story was heavily damaged in a crash. Reports describe serious front-end destruction, deployed airbags, and structural damage to key parts of the car. This was not a simple repair job. In most cases, damage like this would mean the car is written off completely or only repaired under strict factory conditions. The cost alone for parts and labor can reach millions of dollars, making independent repair almost unheard of. However, instead of sending the car back to the official Bugatti factory, the owner decided to take a different route. The wrecked car was purchased from a salvage auction, and the idea was to rebuild it outside the factory system. This is where Mat Armstrong entered the picture. Known for rebuilding high-end performance cars, he agreed to take on the challenge. But even he made it clear that this was far beyond anything he had attempted before. The situation was made even more complex by the fact that the Bugatti Chiron is one of the most advanced road cars ever built. It uses carbon fiber structures, highly specialized electronics, and parts that are often controlled directly by the manufacturer. Unlike normal vehicles, these components are not easy to source or replace without official approval. From the beginning, the project was seen as almost impossible by many experts in the industry. Still, the rebuild began. Videos and updates from the workshop showed the scale of the damage and the difficult process of stripping the car down. Every step required problem-solving, custom fabrication, and careful engineering. As the rebuild progressed, attention from the online world increased. What was once just a damaged supercar had now become a global internet story as the rebuild attempt continued. Reports suggested that Bugatti took action to prevent the independent repair of the car. One of the most controversial claims in the story is that the vehicle identification number, VIN, was restricted in a way that made it difficult or impossible for official dealers to supply parts. In simple terms, the system used to track and support the car was allegedly locked to prevent repair outside approved channels. This created a major debate online. Some people saw it as a safety decision. From a manufacturer's point of view, a car like the Bugatti Chiron is not just a vehicle. It is a highly engineered machine where even small mistakes in repair can lead to serious risks. They argue that only trained factory engineers with the right equipment can safely restore such a complex machine. Others saw it differently. Many car enthusiasts and independent mechanics believe this was an example of a company limiting ownership rights. Once a car is sold, they argue, the owner should be free to repair however they choose, even if it means using independent builders. This disagreement is part of a larger global issue known as the right to repair debate, which affects not just cars but also electronics and farming equipment. The block parts and restricted support became a key point of tension in the story. It turned a private rebuild project into a public argument about control, safety, and independence. As the situation developed, more people began paying attention, not just because of the car itself, but because of what it represented. It became less about metal and engines, and more about who has the final say over expensive technology after it is sold As the controversy grew, voices from within the automotive industry began to respond. One of the most discussed responses came from figures linked to Bugatti's leadership structure, including Mat Armstrong, who plays a major role in the modern Bugatti organization through the Bugatti-Rimac partnership Bugatti-Rimac. The central message from the industry side was focused on safety and responsibility. The main argument was simple. Cars like the Bugatti Chiron are built with extremely precise engineering standards. Every part of the car is designed to work in perfect balance with other systems. When a car is severely damaged, especially in a high-speed crash, the structural integrity may be permanently affected. From this perspective, rebuilding such a vehicle outside the factory environment could create unknown risks. Supporters of this view also argue that modern hypercars are not like normal consumer vehicles. They are closer to aerospace machines in terms of complexity. Materials like carbon fiber monocoques, advanced sensors, and integrated safety systems require specialized knowledge. Even small mistakes in repair could lead to failure during high-speed driving, which is why manufacturers prefer strict control over repairs at the same time. Critics felt these arguments were also protecting business interests. They pointed out that limiting repairs keeps control within the manufacturer's ecosystem and helps maintain brand value. If independent builders successfully repair such cars, it could challenge the idea that only factories are capable of doing so. This tension between safety concerns and ownership rights became one of the central themes of the entire story. While the Bugatti rebuild story was unfolding, another major development entered the picture: changes inside Porsche. The company faced financial pressure due to global market shifts, especially in electric vehicle investments, and declining sales in key regions like China. Profit margins reportedly dropped significantly, forcing the company to reconsider its long-term strategy as part of cost restructuring. Porsche reviewed its investments, including its stake in the Bugatti-Rimac partnership. The luxury hypercar segment, while prestigious, does not directly support Porsche's core mass-market sports car business. In times of financial pressure, companies often focus on what they consider essential operations. This is where the idea of core business began to appear. Eventually, reports suggested that Porsche decided to reduce or exit its involvement in the Bugatti ownership structure. This move was seen as both financial and strategic. It was not necessarily about conflict with Bugatti or Rimac, but rather about focusing resources on more profitable areas of the company's lineup. However, the timing of this decision created strong public reactions, because it happened while the Bugatti rebuild controversy was still being discussed online. Many people connected the two events. Even though they were separate business decisions, the internet treated them as part of the same story. This overlap helped turn a financial restructuring into a viral narrative about power, control, and corporate priorities. The most talked about moment came when Porsche's leadership publicly referenced the idea of focusing on core business. In corporate language, this usually means simplify operations and investing in areas that generate stable returns. However, in the context of the ongoing Bugatti rebuild debate, the phrase took on a much larger meaning. Many online commentators interpreted it as a symbolic statement. To them, it suggested that high-end projects like Bugatti or controversial situations like the block rebuild were no longer priorities for Porsche. Instead, the focus was shifting toward more traditional and profitable automotive lines. This interpretation quickly spread across social media, forums, and YouTube discussions. The interesting part of this reaction is how a simple business phrase became connected to a completely separate internet story. The rebuild of a wrecked Bugatti Chiron had already captured public attention, and now corporate restructuring added another layer of meaning. People began linking the two narratives, even though they were not officially connected in any direct way. This is how modern internet storytelling works. A financial decision in a boardroom can become part of a much larger cultural conversation when it overlaps with a viral human story. In this case, the core business statement became a symbol for the gap between large corporations and independent creators working outside the system. Once all these elements came together, the internet reaction exploded. Car enthusiasts, tech communities, and general viewers began discussing what the story really meant. On one side were people who supported manufacturers and believed that safety and engineering standards must come first. On the other side were those who believed ownership should include full freedom to repair and modify. This is where the broader right to repair movement became central. The same debate exists in many industries, including smartphones, tractors, and home electronics. In all cases, the question is whether companies should control repair systems after selling a product. The Bugatti story simply made this debate more visible because it involved a highly valuable and dramatic example. The involvement of a YouTuber also made the story more relatable. Instead of reading about policy or corporate decisions, people could watch real-time attempts to rebuild a destroyed supercar. This made the debate feel more personal and emotional. It was no longer just about companies and regulations. It was about a real person trying to solve a real problem. As discussions continued, opinions became more divided. Some saw the rebuild attempt as inspiring proof of human skill and determination. Others saw it as risky and irresponsible. But regardless of which side people took, almost everyone agreed on one thing. The story had turned into something much bigger than a single car repair. In the end, this entire situation shows how a single event can grow into a global conversation when it touches multiple powerful themes at once. A wrecked Bugatti Chiron, a skilled YouTuber mechanic, a major car manufacturer, and a global corporation all became part of the same narrative. Each piece added another layer to the story, turning it into something far more complex than a simple rebuild project. The involvement of Porsche's financial decisions, Bugatti's engineering philosophy, and independent repair efforts created a perfect storm of attention. Even though many details remain debated or interpreted differently online, the overall impact is clear. People are now more aware of how much control manufacturers can have over products after sale. Whether one agrees with the factory approach or the independent rebuild attempt, the story highlights a growing shift in how people think about ownership, technology, and freedom. It also shows how powerful storytelling can turn technical subjects into global discussions. What began as a damaged supercar in a workshop became a symbol of a much larger question. In a world of advanced machines and strict systems, who truly owns what we buy? As the story continued to spread, one important detail became clearer to more viewers. Repairing a hypercar like the Bugatti Chiron is not the same as fixing a normal car. These vehicles are built with extremely advanced engineering, where almost every part is connected to a central system. The Chiron, for example, uses a carbon fiber monocoque structure, which means the main body of the car is one strong, lightweight shell. If this structure is damaged, it is not something that can simply be welded or patched like steel in a regular workshop. It requires precise measurements, factory-level tools, and specialist knowledge. On top of that, the electronic systems in such cars are highly sensitive. Sensors, airbags, engine control units, and safety modules all communicate with each other. If even one part is replaced incorrectly or not calibrated properly, the entire system can behave unpredictably. This is why manufacturers argue that repairs must be done in controlled environments. From their point of view, safety is not just a suggestion. It is a foundation of the entire engineering design. Independent builders like Mat Armstrong approach the problem differently. They rely on experience, creativity, and practical problem-solving rather than factory systems. Instead of replacing entire modules, they often repair or adapt parts from other vehicles. For example, in this case, some components were reportedly sourced from similar models or modified to fit the Bugatti system. This kind of work is extremely difficult and requires a deep understanding of how different systems interact. What makes the situation even more interesting is that both sides have valid concerns. Manufacturers worry about safety, reliability, and long-term performance. Independent builders focus on accessibility, creativity, and the idea that complex machines should still be reparable outside the factory. This tension is what makes the story so compelling to audiences around the world. It is not just about one car anymore. It is about two very different ways of thinking about technology, and Control Point, one of the biggest reasons this story became global news, is the power of social media. In earlier decades, a damaged hypercar might have been discussed only in automotive magazines or specialist forums. But today, platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok can turn a workshop project into a worldwide event within hours. Every stage of the Bugatti rebuild was filmed, edited, and shared with millions of viewers who followed the progress like a real-life series. This constant visibility changed everything. Instead of a private technical repair, the project became public entertainment. Every challenge, delay, or breakthrough was instantly analyzed by viewers. Comment sections turned into debate spaces where people argued about engineering, ethics, and corporate responsibility. In many ways, the audience became part of the story itself, reacting in real time to each development. Social media also added emotional weight to the situation. Viewers were not just watching a car being repaired. They were watching a challenge against a global corporation. This framing made the story feel like a modern underdog narrative, where an individual with limited resources tries to achieve something that powerful institutions say is impossible. Whether this framing is fully accurate or not, it played a huge role in how the public perceived the events. That the same time, social media also blurred a line between fact and interpretation. As clips and short videos spread, details were often simplified or exaggerated for engagement. This meant that some parts of the story were taken as absolute truth, even when they were more complex in reality. This is one of the key challenges of modern digital storytelling. Information travels fast, but nuance often gets lost. When news of Porsche reducing its involvement in Bugatti ownership structure spread, it triggered another wave of reactions. Industry analysts began discussing what this meant for the future of high-end automotive partnerships. Porsche's role in the broader Volkswagen Group has always been important, and its investments are usually carefully chosen for long-term strategy rather than short-term gain. From a business perspective, the move was seen as a rational adjustment. Companies often shift focus when market conditions change. Electric vehicle investments, global competition, and changing consumer demand all put pressure on traditional car manufacturers. In this environment, even prestigious brands or partnerships can be reconsidered if they do not align with core goals. However, online audiences interpreted the situation in a more dramatic way. Because the Bugatti rebuild controversy was still fresh in public memory, many people connected Porsche's decision to the broader narrative of corporate control and independent repair. Even